Welcome back to the Neshoba Valley Chamber Business Buzz. My name is Melissa Federoff. I am the president and CEO of the Neshoba Valley Chamber. And today I'm super excited to be here with Jon Cross.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome from Black Ops Tactical Consulting.
Yes.
That was a mouthful for me.
Yes.
For me this morning, that was a mouthful. So you work with organizations, you help assess risk, you strengthen preparedness, and you help leaders navigate the evolving threat landscape.
That's correct.
So this is a super important conversation
We're
going to have today.
It is for sure.
I'm so appreciative that you're here.
I'm excited to be here.
So for those who aren't familiar, tell us what you do and who you serve.
Sure. So we help all sizes of organizations, from schools all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. And we're basically in the operational security side of things. So we are taking threat assessments and training and bringing it to companies and schools that need help with it. People seem to think that they are set and they're locked down and they have everything covered. But it's amazing the amount of gaps that we find when we do an assessment, when we're hired by a client, and the amount of different alternatives that we can put into place to help them keep their places of business safe and secure.
So how did you get into this line of work?
I was in law enforcement for several years, and then I went into executive protection, working in a variety of different regions, both in the Middle East and South America, contractors working in both those spaces. And then the Parkland event came in 2018, the shooting of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas School. And at that point, I'd already been working a lot within the threat assessment for schools. I'm a subject matter expert in active shooter response training. But this really pulled me over the edge. I had people that I knew down there that were involved with it, people that have lost their children to the event. And at that point, I just said to my wife, we need to make a change and just go full feed into the business. And from that point on, it was nothing but, working with organizations on assessments and training. And we still do some executive protection, but it's here and there.
Okay. So how do you feel that the threat landscape changed in recent years?
Well, since 2020, we've seen a lot of increases in depression and anxiety within people, both in students and as in adults. And it's funny because we were looking at it around April, May in 2020, when we started seeing people be isolated and kind of withdrawn from social circles and things like that, just because of what was going on with COVID. And at that point, we were like, well, this isn't good. People aren't in their social settings and we saw anxiety go up, stress go up. Social media and the devices don't help. People are burying themselves into a make-believe world a lot of times, and they're not able to interact. They're not engaging like we normally would. I mean, it was working all the way up through 2020, but 2020 was a real defining time for us. And then since then, we've seen double-digit increases in workplace violence. We've all seen the incidences take place in schools and businesses when it comes to active attack. So we aren't getting any better, unfortunately, and it's really not it might make some people upset, but it's not a gun control issue. It is a mental health issue. It is are we seeing people? I always tell my clients, I said, are you seeing your employees? Are you seeing your students? And they said, well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, are you engaging with them? Are you talking with them? Are you going beyond a Teams message or a email and saying, hey, how are you doing today? What's going on? I noticed you hadn't been at work a couple of days. Is there something wrong? Billy, I noticed your grades went from A to a C to now a D. What's happening with you? Until we get to the point where we're actually having those conversations again and we're really engaging as humans, we're going to continue having the problems, because you're going to have things slipping underneath the cracks.
Why do you think that so many organizations think that it won't happen here?
We get comfortable, we get complacent, I come to work every day, I take the same route, I get the same coffee. Today, I came here, I stopped at a donut shop on the corner of the road that is near my house. I got a coffee, I came here, I drove the same way I always drive. People do it every day, and we get complacent, we get comfortable. How many times do you go into a business and you go in and there's a access control, a door lock, and they badge in, but they hold the door for 5 people behind them because it's the nice thing to do. and we're complacent about our procedures and policies. So, and it's unfortunate because it can happen anywhere. There's no defined um, suspect or perpetrator of a active attack or workplace violence, or I mean, it can be anybody. And we continue to, like I said before, we have a very, very heavy mental health problem right now, where people just don't know what to do with the stress. I mean, when you came into work today, gas is at what, $4 a gallon,
Right.
and then we're gonna go to $6 a gallon for diesel. That's gonna flow into groceries. It's gonna flow into everything else. People don't know what to do with the stress.
Yeah.
So between that and complacency, it becomes a major. It's like a perfect storm.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've said that violence prevention is a leadership issue, not just a security issue.
That's correct.
What do you mean by that?
As leaders, we have to really be aware of what's happening with our businesses and our schools. We have a liability there that people don't realize sometimes. So if we see people propping doors or holding doors, or if we see that policies and procedures aren't being followed and we're a leader, we're now liable. If something was to take place, an event, and somebody got hurt or killed in the business because of somebody else, and we knew that that was a problem, then we're on the hook. We can not only be charged from a civil side of it, but now we're seeing criminal charges, felony charges for gross negligence on leaders, CEOs, C-suite owners, and judges are starting to get to the point where they're sick of seeing the cases come in front of them, and they're like, "We're going to charge you criminally now. We're no longer going to charge you civilly." We've seen it time and time again where we knew there was a problem. For example, in schools, we had a case up in Michigan where we knew that there was an issue. The kid was showing signs of violence. He was leaving evidence of it. I mean, there was a point where he was leaving bird heads inside jars around the school in the bathrooms. And the school administrator said, "Don't say anything because we don't want the people to think the school has a problem. We live in a nice neighborhood. We don't want people to think that there's an issue here. There's an issue everywhere. But we just have to realize that those red flags that come up, we have to address them because you're going to be held liable. You're going to be on the hook for issues that happen and you knew about them, or you knew there were signs of them."
What warning signs do you think are commonly missed?
There's we call it the pathway of violence. So there's a variety of things that you see. We just talked about the student that doesn't show up to school or shows up and the grades are going down. They show up dirty. They have clothes that are not clean. Those, I mean, just as mandatory reporters, we need to say something. In schools, businesses. Sue used to come out with us every Friday night, and we used to go and go get ourselves a drink and have food, and we laughed and had a good time. And all of a sudden, Sue's not showing up. Sue's not even engaging at work. Sometimes now Sue's not even coming to work. At what point do we not just leave it up to HR or the leadership and say, "I worked with Sue for 10 years. I spend more time with Sue than I do with my own family. I should probably go up and say, 'Hey, Sue, what's going on? How are you?' We're so afraid. We're like in our box. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to say anything. What if I'm wrong? Well, what if you're right?" We see a lot of obsessions, right? Obsessions with past school shooting incidences. You see that in schools a lot of times. That's a warning sign. All of a sudden, a interest in weapons or violence. All these little things, and it's not just one that indicates an issue. Usually, we say, if you see 2 or 3 things popping up, you probably should investigate a little deeper
Yeah.
and say, is there a problem here? Do we need to bring in, if it's a school, do we need to bring the parents and have a conversation? If it's work, do we need to sit down with, leadership and this person and say, "Hey, this is not a disciplinary conversation. We're genuinely concerned about you and your health." And when you do that, and from a work perspective especially, can you imagine the retention that you have in a business when you actually engage them and care about them versus just saying, "Well, that's the 25th employee that works for me, and if they go, we'll just go on Indeed and get another one."
Right.
So in longevity and having that employee long term, just show you care.
And these aren't things that happen overnight.
No, this is over time, right? We don't wake up in the morning. The average person that's going to cause violence is not going to wake up in the morning and say, "It's a beautiful Tuesday morning. It's finally, going to be 80 degrees today. I think we'll go shoot up work." It's over time. They've been thinking about it. They've been writing about it. The warning signs that we see online. I'll give you an example, and I teach this in the class, and it's kind of they find humor in it when I say it, but if I go up to you and I know, well, let's change it. Let's if somebody comes up to me, they know that I'm on the firing range a lot. I'm shooting a lot. I'm an instructor. I've been around weapons all my life. I am trained and certified in the weapons I use. If you see me post something on social media and I'm at the range, the people are gonna say, "Yeah, that's normal."
Yeah.
But if I see somebody who is not shot, right? And I go, "Oh, wow, Betty's at the range today, or Bill's at the range today. Interesting." And I see them the next day and I say, "Hey, Bill, I saw you were at the range. Did you get a new firearm?" And he says to me, "Yeah, I did. I'm really excited about it. It's this, that, and I want to go to the range. Will you go to the range with me? I would love to learn more about, shooting it and safety." And no warning sign.
Yeah.
But if I go to the same person and I say, "Bill, I noticed you just got a new Glock, I'm really excited to see what you're doing." And he looks at me and goes, "Just get out of my way, it's none of your business. Oh, by the way, I'm going to see the HR director," or, anything that is like warning signs, right? Um, that you gotta get those flags. And
Yeah.
or you see the picture of, how many times have we seen the picture of the student or the teenager holding guns in the mirror and, posting on social media, and no one says anything. It's weeks in front of the event that had happened, and all these posts come out after the fact. Where you're telling me that nobody in their social circle saw this person holding a gun up to the mirror and making comments. Like, where are we missing that? We'll see everything. We'll see, what you made for dinner last night, and I'll see a cake that was made, and how I should make it tomorrow with cottage cheese. Why cottage cheese? Why is everything being made with cottage cheese now? And I asked my wife, I'm like, did they just realize cottage cheese existed? A banana, an egg, and some cottage cheese, and I have a flan. I'm like, when did that happen? Sorry, not even to digress, but it just blows my mind. But that you'll see.
Right.
But you're not going to see, the person that you are in the circle with having issues for.
Yeah.
We just have to tune in,
Yeah.
tune in a little bit more.
Agreed. Agreed. So one of the things that you guys do is a threat and vulnerability assessment.
Tongue tire, right?
Tongue tire. So tell us a little bit about that and why that's important for
Yeah.
companies.
So clients will hire us to come in and do a complete assessment, and it's a threat and vulnerability assessment. So we're uh, doing an analysis of all the threats and vulnerability and the safety of a site. Could be a school, could be a business. And we will go in and we will review their policies, their procedures. Day one is usually a lot of paperwork, a lot of interviewing. We're going to engage employees anonymously, find out what their thoughts are, if they have emergency operating plans in place, do they know where to find them as an employee? Have you had a fire evacuation? Do you do lockdown? Do you do active shooter? And we go through that, and then we'll do a physical walkthrough, and we'll see, what's happening with their doors. Are they locking properly? Do they have proper placement for cameras? Do they have all the things? We'll go through the cybersecurity policy, make sure that's in place, make sure they have one. At the end of it all, we deliver a report, and the report has all of the gaps and analysis in it, along with any considerations that we're making, an executive summary as well. And it's delivered to them in a way that it prioritizes from critical down, so they know where to start. Because you could get a whole bunch of stuff that you see and think, "Oh my goodness, where do I start?" And then if they want to hire us afterward on a retainer, we can come in and help them work through and develop those different items. Every 3 years, we recommend, as an industry standard, to go and do a threat assessment.
Okay.
The reason being operational changes, employee changes. You might have new technology in place. You might have moved buildings, So very important to make sure that you have one done every 3 years. And those assessments can take anywhere from a day, day and a half to, I've had some that I have a zoo that we're doing, and it's 5 days, of, deciding um, what we need to see and what we're going to look at. And then there's some stuff on the report as well, which is like, simple stuff like, are your stairs marked with yellow tape to make sure that no one trips? People always think, oh, it's just going to be security. It's a whole gamut of information that we're gathering to be able to position yourself better. And what that does for you is it gets you in a better place with your insurance company. So now your insurance company, and you know exactly what's going on. If you could limit the amount of liability that insurance company is exposed to, sometimes that will equate to discounting. So you just talk to your insurance company about, will you give me a break on, my insurance? The other thing is they say, well, that doesn't really do anything for my bottom line, but it does. Because if you can limit yourself from exposing yourself to risk, your company to risk, that means you're not going to affect production time. God forbid something happens. If something happens in a manufacturing facility or a place where, your computer, it doesn't matter, a tech, if you're shutting down your business, that means you're not producing. And, God forbid something happens, there's a attack that takes place, someone gets hurt, the feds are coming in, they're shutting down the building. So people that were in there, they're not even getting their car keys until the investigation is done. That investigation could last weeks, So now the customers are going to call you and say, oh my goodness, Melissa, I am so sorry what happened at the facility. Please, flowers, they'll do all kinds of stuff. But 2 weeks later, they're going to call you and say, Melissa, order 1, 2, 3, 4. I need that. When are you going to get it to me? So now you start losing business. And how many of those employees are coming back to work for you after, God forbid, something happens at your facility? So bottom line, yes, can be affected if you're not doing these assessments and you're not protecting yourself. So we really are an extension of your insurance. We're really making sure that we're keeping you out of harm's way and working hand in hand with insurance brokers as well and helping their clients do the same thing.
Nice. What would you say is the first most responsible step that an organization should take?
Get an assessment. Yeah. Get us in, have us take a look at it. We'll come in for an hour for free, at no charge, just to sit and talk and get a quick evaluation of things. So it's not always a cost associated with us coming in. And then afterward, we'll determine at that point, listen, you really should have an assessment done. You've never had one done, or you haven't had one done in years. I will point out a couple of obvious things while I'm going through that 1 hour walkthrough. And then at that point, we put a plan together and what makes sense for them, and both from a budgetary standpoint and from a resource standpoint.
Nice. All right, so we're going to change gears for a minute.
Okay.
And do a few quick questions for you. One word leaders should associate with preparedness.
Liability.
That's a good one. What's the biggest mistake organizations make when it comes to safety?
Complacency. Being complacent and feeling like they have it locked down, and not putting it in as a line item in their budget as an annual, something that they need to look at, even if it's an internal assessment from what we have done, just to get together for a day and say, okay, are we covering everything?
Best piece of leadership advice that you've received?
Always follow through.
Good one.
Always follow through. Don't tell somebody you're gonna give them a call and on a Monday at noon and not do it.
Yeah.
The person that told me that was, at the time I was in my early 20s, and he was in his early 80s. He was just one of those guys that at the time I was in a community where he would show up and he was just Jim.
Yeah.
And Jim always told us, listen, if you tell somebody that you're going to be there, or you're going to tell somebody you're going to call them or whatever it might be, do it. The value in that is huge.
Absolutely.
If they can trust you. How many times do you have, somebody say they're going to come out and take a look at your house and they don't show up?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely follow through.
Nice. If you weren't in this field, what would you be doing?
I would own a taco stand in the Bahamas. Laid back with music playing.
I feel like you've thought about this.
I have. It's funny. I have tried to move away from this business a lot over my career. Because it's taxing. The assessments are one thing, but when you're working with schools and we've done a lot of analysis from. We were involved with the Oxford shootings. We were involved with the Uvalde shooting. We were involved a little bit in the Parkland aftermath. It takes a toll on you.
I can't imagine.
But I can't see myself doing anything else, because every time I look at my girls, and one is in Monty Tech, the other one's in elementary school, like we have one in college, I cannot not do it.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. I think once you realize in your career what your true purpose is, and purpose is different than profession. Everybody can have a profession. I'm this, I'm that. And, do you have purpose behind it? Do you, truly find self-value in what you're doing? Once you really key into that, it's really hard to break away from it.
Yeah.
So I'll probably be 80 when I get my taco stand.
That's all right. So is there anything that we didn't cover that you want our listeners to know about?
Be diligent with your security posture as much as you are with everything else in your business. You can't get away from fire. It's one of those things that you open a building, the fire inspector comes, you got to put your extinguishers up, you got to have your pull boxes.
Yeah.
Same thing with us. We're not as mandated, but you got to look at it. You have to look at all aspects of your safety and security.
Yeah.
And the other thing is just make sure you're communicating across, all of your employees and all of your students. There's too many times where we're not getting the message down to, everybody. And, if you do training, make sure everybody's training your organization, because God forbid that something happens and, my wife works in an area of the business that didn't get the training,
Right.
and she is killed in an event. And the first thing they're going to do is they're going to go through your paperwork. As soon as something happens, they're going to your paperwork. They want to see your training. It's like OSHA.
Yeah.
If you have something that happens and someone falls off a ladder, they're going to go and look at it. This is all part of general duty clause.
Yeah.
So make sure that everything's in place. Make sure you're following through with everything. Make sure everybody knows, because somebody's going to say, well, Sue worked in the mailroom and Bill was a vice president. He got the training. Was Sue not? And this will come up in court. It'll sound like this, and it sounds awful. Was Sue not as important as Bill? And then you're sitting there going, of course she was important. Well, why didn't you train her?
Yeah.
And now you look as a executive of a company or an owner of a company, you look like a fool. He's like, I of course I cared for her. I talk to Sue every day, but that doesn't matter now because Sue's no longer with us.
So, John, if somebody wants to get a hold of you and learn more about you and about your company,
Yeah.
how do they do that?
They can go to our website, which is botcamerica.com, or they can reach us at info@botcamerica.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
It's a lot of information, but
It
it's
is a lot.
important.
It is.
We've had a lot of important conversations at the chamber over the years. This is one of the biggest. So.
Yeah, and we're always available for people just to call us and ask questions. Not every phone call is a bill, so
Yeah.
just give us a ring. We're happy to help the community.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for what you do. Thank you for tuning in and listening to what we had to say today. And of course, very special thanks to AJ from Clear Signal Productions, our producer of our podcast. Have a wonderful day.